Hi everyone, welcome to CL-LST. So, in the last class, we have started with the beginning, or you can say basics of Constitution, where we discussed about the salient feature, why Constitution is important from our examination perspective, why when we read newspaper, we always see there's something having, some relevance with the Constitution. Why we always see that whenever there's a conflict or whenever there's an interpretation of law is involved or where the question is with respect to whether this particular law is perfect or not, constitution comes into picture. So keeping all this in mind, in the last class also we discussed that this is something which is one of the very important topic from our examination perspective. And other than knowing the static, we also need to know the current affairs. So static plus current affairs is something which you need to study from constitutional perspective. Also there's a very important aspect involved over here. So the syllabus of CLAT says you're not supposed to apply the prior knowledge. Then the very next line of the syllabus says that if you know the law, then it's good. It can be of great help. So keeping that in mind, they do expect you to understand the basics of law. Also sometimes they do ask questions where you have to go beyond what the passage is saying. You have to apply the basics. You have to apply the current affairs. If you go back to the questions where they have asked questions related to fundamental right, especially freedom of speech and expression, they do expect you to go beyond what has been given in the passage. Similarly, if you go to CLAT 2020 paper, there was a question based on Arnab Goswami. There also they wanted you to go beyond the passage in a one particular question. Similarly, 2021 compassionate appointment. So all these are, or why these are being asked is because these are in news, having some relationship with constitution, having some relevance. So considering that, last class we discussed this all. Now in today's session, the first thing which I am going to explain is what are the important topics which we need to focus on. Because as we discussed, constitution is quite lengthy. But when we say constitution is quite lengthy, it is not like that we are supposed to read each and everything in the constitution. Because the moment you start reading each and everything in the constitution, then it's not going to end. I mean, your syllabus will never be complete. So we have to act smartly. We have to pick only those topics which we feel is relevant and is important, or only need to understand such topics. For example, I have listed down over your topics. The first one is 12 schedule, which is there. Then obviously fundamental rights, because of whenever we read newspaper, or for that matter whenever there is a question with respect to constitutional validity of a law, fundamental right comes into picture. DPSP, for example, when we talk about uniform civil code, so it is part of article 44, which is part of DPSP. Fundamental duties, when you have rights you also have certain corresponding duties, so keeping that in mind, fundamental duties. Code keeps us reminding that you also have certain duties, so keeping that in mind, fundamental duties. Constitutional bodies, whenever we see conflict with respect to, or if any of the constitutional body is in news, then in that, from that perspective we need to read that. For example, election commissions, we have been seeing, in last recent years, you can say last 2 3 years, yeah, recent years, we have seen election commissioners or election commissions being in news, electoral bond being in news, elections being in news. So keeping that in mind, I'm just giving one example of constitutional body which we need to study. Then emergency provisions, especially not that national emergency or financial emergency, because national emergency we just had thrice, financial emergency we have not had till now. When we take into consideration state emergency, so this is again very crucial, so we need to focus on that. Then obviously, being a law student, being a or going to be a budding lawyer, you need to understand judiciary, especially Supreme Court and High Court, the how it is being constituted, how the judges are being appointed, then how Supreme Court functions, or what are the jurisdiction of Supreme Court. Because sometimes we also see conflicts with respect to jurisdiction of Supreme Court, or for that matter, you must have heard the concept called as judicial activism, judicial overreach. So keeping all these in mind, and obviously there's a article 50 which talks about separation of power, that executive is shall not be interfering in the domain of judiciary, and vice versa, judiciary shall also not be interfering in the domain of legislature and executive. So we always see the tussle happening between the government and the judiciary. Maybe what government is doing, judiciary is overruling it, or maybe what judiciary is overruling government in order to overcome it, is coming with some other law. So keeping that in mind, also when there is a kind of uh, breach of article 50, you can say, so from that perspective also it is important to study. And the last one I have just mentioned as CLD, which is contemporary legal development. Contemporary legal development also is very important. Contemporary legal development is part of your CLAT syllabus also. And from constitution perspective, whenever we see fundamental rights being in news, written news, judiciary in news, parliament in news, presidents in news, governors of a state in news, roles of governors, everything will fall within the definition of contemporary legal development. So these are some of the topics which you need to study. In last class I had left preamble, that I'll be taking a preamble, but before that I just want to give you a quick idea as to what are the 12 schedule and why it is important to read the 12 schedule. So the first schedule lists down the states and union territories and their corresponding territories, so that is giving you a basic idea. Then the second schedule talks about the allowances, privileges, outlines, emoluments of president, governor, Lok Sabha, speaker, Rajya Sabha, chairperson, Supreme Court judges, High Court judges. So this is from the second schedule perspective. Then third schedule outlines the oath and affirmation for union and state ministers, candidate for parliaments, candidate for state legislative elections, members of parliament and state legislature, judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court, controller and auditor general of India. So this falls within the definition of third schedule. Fourth schedule talks about the distribution of seats among states and union territories in the Council of State and based on the population. Then fifth schedule, sixth schedule we see in news. So fifth schedule, sixth schedule is important from our examination perspective. Fifth schedule deals with the control and administration of scheduled areas and scheduled tribes in various states. Sixth schedule talks about primarily deals with the administration of tribal areas in the northeastern state of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. We have seen, you know, Ladakh also asking special status under sixth schedule. So keeping that in mind, it is important. Then seventh schedule talks about the three list: union list, state list, and concurrent list. National subjects like defense, foreign affairs, all these falls within the category of union list. State and local topics like police, public health falls within the state list. Concurrent list is something which is the shared subject like education, can be one example, which falls in the concurrent list where both central government and the state government has a right to make laws. Then eighth schedule talks about the recognized languages in India. For example, there are many languages which has been recognized. Maybe Hindi is there in the eighth schedule, Gujarati is there in the eighth schedule, Assamese is in the eighth schedule, Marathi is there. So this is giving you an idea as to what all languages has been recognized. Then ninth schedule. Ninth schedule talks about laws exempted from judicial scrutiny, primarily aimed at land reforms and socio-economic justice. But all the laws which is there in the ninth schedule is not immune from judicial review. After Keshwanand Bharti and I.R. Kohilo judgments, whatever is being kept under ninth schedule, judiciary does have a right to review it. Then the tenth schedule, again, we very frequently see this in news. It establishes the provisions to curb political defection, ensuring parties, discipline in parties are being maintained, and also it ensures stability in the legislatures. It is something which was added by 52nd Constitutional Amendment to basically, you can say, combat the evil of political defection. And various judgment also through which Supreme Court has stated that when a Speaker of the House takes an action under anti-defection. So, in that particular case, the Speaker of the House works as a judiciary, and the Speaker, the order, the judgment of the Speaker of House shall be based on rule of law, or you can can say it shall follow due process of law. And then, so 10th schedule is important. 11th is talking about the functions, powers, and responsibilities of Panchayati Raj, and 12th is talking about the functions of municipalities, which is focusing on urban planning, infrastructures, and governance. 11th was added by 73rd Constitutional Amendment. 12th was added by 74th Constitutional Amendment. So this is what is the 12th schedule, where you have to focus on, or you have to remember 5th, 6th, 10th, 9th, and yeah, 5th, 6th, 10th, 9th for 9th and 10th for sure. And then other you can just remember for your reference purposes. Then fundamental right will be dealing in detail in future. Now, I think in the last class I had left over here That what is preamble? So preamble is something which we can say, if you have to refer to the Indian preamble, so it is an introduction, or you can say it is a preface to Indian constitution. It contains the essence of the constitution. It is the reflection of national nation's identity. It talks about all the foundational principles which is there in the constitution, or whatever is being discussed in the constitution. A brief idea of the same has been given in the preamble. So if you refer to preamble, you actually get a glimpse of what is covered in the constitution in detail. And that is why preamble was something which was added at last. First the constitution was drafted, and then the preamble was added. Preamble, actually you can say, it is the mirror also. It is the introduction, it contains the summary. You can say it is some jurists have also, defined it or has stated that it acts as the identity card of the constitution, or it is the political horoscope of the constitution. We need not to get into that aspect. We just need to remember what preamble is talking about, what we can figure out from what the preamble is stating. So the very first wording of preamble says, we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, which is social, economic, and political justice; liberty, which we are talking about thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship; equality, which is of status and opportunity, and to promote them among all; fraternity, which is assuring the dignity of individual; and unity and integrity of the nation. So the very first term, which is we the people of India, is reflecting that the preamble and the constitution of India derives its authority from the we the people. It is we the people who have given ourselves a preamble. So we had elected the members of Constituent Assembly. Those members of the Constituent Assembly actually carried the viewpoints of the people, and that is what is being reflected in the preamble. That is why it is said that the preamble, the source of Indian constitution is we the people of India. It is highlighting India's commitment of being a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. If we take into consideration the word secular, socialist, and the integrity of the nation, this was something which was added by 42nd constitutional amendment. These words were not earlier, but this doesn't mean that India was not a secular country or India was not focusing on the socialist aspect. No, but intentionally it was not added. Later on, it was added in the preamble. So when we talk about the components, or you can say the nature, so it says that as I have already stated, that preamble derives its authority, or the constitution derives its authority from the people. It declares India a sovereign state, a socialist state, a secular state, a democratic and a republic polity. It also reflects what is the objective of constitution. So the objective is justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. And then it also explains the date of adoption of the constitution. So November 26, 1949 was the date when it was adopted, and the constitution came into force on 26 January 1950. Why 26 January 1950? Because we wanted to give recognition to the declaration of Purn Swaraj, which has happened on 26 January at the bank of River Ravi. So now coming back to the words, each and every words. The first one is sovereignty. Sovereignty implies that India is neither dependent or is not dominated by any other country. India is a self governing state. India has not stated, or no authority is above it, and India is free to manage its internal and external affairs. This is what do you mean by sovereignty. Then what is socialist? It implies that it envisions a socio-economic system where there's an equitable distribution of wealth, resources, opportunities, which is aiming to reduce economic inequalities among the citizens. Then secular, which emphasizes the principle of religious neutrality and the separation of religion from the affair of states. Democratic, as we are very much aware of, the very basic concept: for the people, by the people, of the people. So here the government is accountable to people, and in case if you don't like the government, you have an option of voting out that government in next election. Then republic, it signifies a form of government where the head of state is elected by people or their representatives. So in India, there is no direct election of the head of the state. They are being elected by the through our representative. Then, when we talk about justice, we look for social justice, equal treatment of all citizens, economic justice, that means there should not be any discrimination based on economic factors, and then political justice, that means every citizens have a equal political right, equal access to all political affairs, and equal voices in the government also. Then liberty. Liberty means the absence of any restraintment, restrictions on the activities of individuals, along with providing opportunities for individual growth and development. So, preamble seeks to provide, you can say, for to secure or for all its citizens right of liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, worship, and that is why you have fundamental right, freedom of speech and expression, freedom to practice religion of your choice. Then next one is equality. Again, equality is same. The equality and liberty goes together. So, equality means the absence of special privileges for any section of society, and there has to be provision for adequate representation or opportunity for all individuals without any discrimination. And then fraternity is the importance of fostering a sense of brotherhood and unity among all everybody. And the last one is unity and integrity, which is talking about, you can say, national integration. It aims at overcoming all the hindrance, and like, casteism, communalism, regionalism, all these can be there. So we have to, get above it, and we have to think about India as a nation. So this is what is the preamble, and it embodies the basic philosophy and fundamental values on which our constitution is based on. So till now we have done, we have covered till preamble. If you have any questions with respect to preamble or with respect to any of the particular terminology, you can post it on the chat box. We'll get back to you. And in the next class, we'll be covering fundamental right, part third of the Constitution. Before getting into the fundamental right, we'll cover Article 12, Article 13. Article 12 defines what is state, because fundamental right is being guaranteed by state. So we need to understand who all or what all falls within the definition of state, and then what is law. And accordingly, we'll be moving ahead with the all the fundamental rights, and we'll be explaining it in detail. So this is all about today's class, guys. See you guys in the next class. Thank you.